Live. Welcome to Ukrainian Dynamics 365 and Power Platform User Group Meetup. Here we discuss different technical topics related to Microsoft Dynamics applications, both CRM and ERP, Power Platform, and related technology stacks. We used to host meetups every 2 weeks in Ukrainian or in English. However, starting with May, we will move to a monthly schedule. I want to thank our community leaders, Elizabeth Akinfeeva, Maxim Martinov, and Valentin Gasenko for their contribution to the community development. Please note that we are recording this event. The video you can find later on our YouTube channel. And our today's speaker is Diana Birkelbach. Among her titles are PCF Lady and Microsoft MVP, who will tell us about code components for Power Apps Grid. Diana, we're pleased to have you here. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. I guess I'm gonna start sharing the screen, but somehow I'm not allowed to. Maybe.
Oh yeah, let me fix it for you real quick. Yeah, you can do it now.
Oh yes, great. Okay, so I guess you can see my screen now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna talk about code components for Power Apps Grid. Just a few words about myself first. So I'm a Microsoft MVP from Germany. I work for Orbis for more than 20 years already. Actually, I started to work there right after I've moved to Germany. I'm originally from Romania. They have got a chance to work with Microsoft CRM, Dynamics 365 or Power Platform right from the beginning. So it was CRM version 1.2. Since PCF was released, I do a lot of them. I write a lot of blogs about PCF. I have a YouTube channel. I have some open source PCF, which I have them on GitHub, and of course, on some of them are on PCF Gallery. So that would be me. When we talk about code components, we talk about PCF. So what are PCF after all? It is a framework for controls, which we can use for developing Power Apps. So we can use them for model-driven apps, Canvas apps, custom pages, even inside Power Pages. It's a pro-dev possibility to use the same framework as the first-party controls. They are generic, so they are reusable, and they have a great integration with the platform. There are two types of PCF. We have the field PCF, which we can use on form, for instance, in model-driven apps, or in Canvas apps, or we have dataset PCF, which we can use on views or tables or collection or stuff like that in Canvas apps. When you talk about field PCF, so you see one of my PCFs, the colorful option set, which is we can use it on the form for option set to show the colors. We can use generally PCFs on one or more columns. So one PCF can have more columns at once. Same column can be shared by several PCFs, so they can communicate each other that way. Most of the data types are already supported, and they have a context. So we can use an SDK context for the PCF. We are not allowed to use the exam object, which is unsupported, and we cannot directly control the form context, but we have a context to interact. So when we think about eventually the deprecation of HTML web resources, PCF are the future for implementing components. The dataset code components, for instance, in model-driven apps, we can bind them to tables, to views, or subgrids. And we can also have them on Canvas app or custom pages, where we can use them for tables, collections, or connectors, stuff like that. It could be a grid, a map, a calendar control, maybe a timeline control, or something similar. So we can choose. They are very flexible and generic. The definition of the data, it's not made inside the PCF. We only declare which type of data set we used, and we can even go farther and define the fields, but as an alias. And the real mapping with a table happens right inside the customizing, so it's not written inside the code. We can bind PCFs on entity level, so for all the views. We can bind them on specific views, or we can bind them on subgrids. If we define for dataset also this property set, that's some kind of fields which we declare inside the dataset, and it has also another function. It will take this field, which will declare there in customizing, will take that field and will add to the view, even if this field is not inside the view. So there are great interaction and design possibilities for dataset PCFs too. They are seamlessly integrated, so the dataset PCF gets the data. We don't have to make some kind of web API. We don't have to make some kind of fetches. We get the data from the PCF, from the runtime. And as I said, we can bind them on tables, views, or the subgrids. We can use the standard search or filter, the column filter, for instance. We can implement some paging and sorting. We have SDK features for that, but also for changing the filter. And we have also the ribbon integration. We can select records which will be available for the ribbon commands, or we are even able to execute a ribbon command by taking that command in the code and executing it. Really great integration. When we implement a PCF, the structure of the PCF contains basically a manifest and the other code parts, and so the implementation. The manifest, it's probably one of the most important parts of the PCF, because it's the point where we start with designing the PCF. We declare there which are our properties, which allows us to communicate with the platform runtime, allows us to declare the resources which we want to include inside our PCF. And also, you can see it on the right side, we can declare some features which we want to have included. One of them would be the web API or devices features or stuff like that. If you want them, we have to declare them here, and we have them inside a PCF, at least inside model-driven and custom pages PCFs. The implementation will allow us to use all the modern front-end development. We have Node.js, we have TypeScript. We can use React if you choose to, or we can use Fluent UI, which help us a lot because the look and feel, it's already very similar with the one from the Power Platform. When we implement field PCF, we have this 4 methods we have to implement. So we have the init, where we can make some initialization in the beginning. We have the destroy, but the most important part, it's the update view function. This one will be called quite a lot every time something in the properties are changed. This update view will be called with the new properties and gives us the possibility to react to these changes and to change our component in that case. If we want to change a value inside a PCF and we want to give it to the platform, we will gonna call this notify output changed function. That's a callback which we get from the platform. And when we call that in asynchronous mode, the get outputs will be called by the platform, and there we can provide the new values which were changed. So that's the way a PCF it's defined. When we think about dataset PCF, we have to implement quite a lot of features here. So I have a blog where I've listed everything I had to do for implement a dataset PCF, and there are quite a few features we have to take care that the header, it's sticky, so it's staying there even if you scroll. You have to take care of the footer, of the full height of the component. We have to define the columns, so decide which one you want to show. You can take them from the metadata from the PCF, but you have to take care of all that stuff, which is the width of the column. We have to take care of filtering, paging, implement our own sorting, taking care of record selection, and open the record in case we choose to. Translation, of course, taking care that the grid is responsive. If you want to edit the data inside the dataset PCF, we have to take care how to change and save the data. And sometimes it's quite a lot of work to implement a column filter too. So quite a lot of steps to implement for a dataset PCF. And if we compare a field with a dataset PCF, we cannot take one field PCF and include it in a dataset PCF. We had to implement the whole dataset PCF. So it's a lot more work, and you have different properties and methods for the field and for the data set, and to come to a special record in the data set, and to work with the columns. So to the rescue, we have now the Power Apps grid. So at least in model-driven apps, it's still a preview. There is the Power Apps grid, and we can choose it to add to any view or subgrid. So in the past, we had the read-only grid and editable grid. Now we have this Power Apps grid control if you choose to add it on in the customizing. We can use them inside model-driven apps or in Power Pages. So it's possible to have dataset PCF there too. We have some nice features for the Power Apps grid. We have this infinite scrolling already. We have inline editing. You have on the right side a screenshot from the Power Apps grid. We can choose in customizing if you want the colors to be shown for each option for the data set. You see it in the screenshot. This one are the colors defined for each option for the option set. And there are a few features to come. And I actually saw yesterday a post on LinkedIn. It seems that nested grids are already there. I have to try them out soon. But also there are a few more announced, like grouping and aggregation. Very much looking forward what's possible to do with them. But what it's very important for me, it's the possibility to use the customizer control. So inside this PCF, which is a standard control from Microsoft, we are able to define a customizer control. And basically here it's only a text field where I define the name of the PCF, but all the magic happens inside. So it is a special kind of PCF. It's not like the field PCF. It's not like a dataset PCF. It's something in between, pretty similar to the form PCF. So we host that PCF inside the Power Apps grid, and we define there the function for rendering the cells and editors. So this one would be an example from the docs. So from the sample, where the text field, it's shown in green, and for the credit limit, when it's above 100,000 would be blue, and I think when it's less would be in the red color. So we can make some customizations to the standard grid with just a few lines of code. And I show you this part from the docs, so from the example. It's really not much to implement. So we have the manifest, and each time we define a PCF or Power Apps grid, we have only this event name. It's only one property of type string and nothing more there. We have also the implementation, and there we get the value of this event name, which was defined in a manifest. And using that, we just attach to the Power Apps grid by providing a customizer. And this customizer will provide the render function and the editor function for the pipes grid. So basically, we define for each column how this will look like. And for the controls which we don't want to override, the standard will take control of that, and we just take care of the ones we want to change. So the implementation of this render function, in this case, it's read-only, so render overrides. It's basically a JSON object, and for each data type, so we have here the text and the currency field. For each of them, we're gonna provide the React component which should be rendered there. So for the text, we have a label in green. And if it's a currency, and in this case, we're gonna check only for this column, so should be credit limit, then we will have, if it's, we'll have it on blue or red. But that's it. Just with a few lines of code, we can make that change, and we don't have to take care of all the details for a dataset PCF. It's pretty impressive. So I'll show you a few more examples what we can do with the Power Apps grid. The first one I've changed the look and feel for a Boolean. So I have is happy and change it to a smiley face. And I have the color for option set, which I've implemented in the form, which I've used here as a control for the option set column. And for that, oops, sorry for that. Okay. So first, this is the standard Power Apps grid, where we have the standard controls, and they are editable too. And as soon you change the row, the data will be changed. But if we go in the customizing and choose the Power Apps grid, we can define there the customizer control. And there I just have to specify the name of my PCF. It should be the prefix of my solution, then would be the underscore, then the namespace, dot, and the name of my PCF. And after we save and publish that, and we change to Power Apps grid, you can see in the first, it takes a small delay, but until this is happy and technology code, it's changed to the controls I wanted to have there. But this one happens only in the beginning. It's only the first time ever until the control is taken. So if I refresh or change there to another, you don't see the delay anymore. And if I just click there on the columns, on the smiley face, so it gets edited. And when I leave, the row will be saved. And this happens also for the option set with this color shown there. So it's editable and saved as soon I leave the row, but I still use the standard functionality. So I still have this search or filter or stuff like that, which I enable to use. So from the implementation point of view, nothing special here. So I have only the namespace and the name of my PCF, which I'm gonna define later in the customizing. I have the event name. It's always the same for every Power Apps grid customizer control. Inside the implementation, only the init part, it's there implemented, and there it's always the same. I take the name of the event name. I have here a little more implemented, but basically I fire an event with the new customizer, so the Power Apps grid knows that we want to override them. And for the render function, we have this JSON object, and I have here for the option set and for the two options where I provide an icon or this option set, or I can even include there the edit controls inside the editor override. And for each cells, we get some methods inside the properties which are provided in this function, for instance, on cell value changed, this is the function which we call so that the grid knows that we changed the value, and will save this one together with the PCFs grid. The next demonstration would be about calculated columns. So you see on the screenshot, it's about having a few accounts which have to be visited. And I have for each account a column named schedule date, and also a column called next appointment, which will be in the future. And so that would be the date of the next date I should visit the account. But when there are delays and the customer was not visited, this date will get in the past, right? So I want that this date will get changed each time I'm looking to the account list. So plugin, it's not a good option to implement it like that. We can use a formula column in Dataverse, but this one works only in online mode. So if I'm offline, I don't have much chances except this PCF, where I can calculate the next appointment based on the proposition which I get from the Dataverse. And let's see how it works. So first, I go to the tables and I go to accounts. And there I have this column. So first of all, getting to the daytime. And you can see the next appointment is a formula column. And it's of type date and time. And the formula there, if it's in the past, take the next Monday. Otherwise, you can show the schedule date. So that would be the idea here. And if we go now inside the app and use the PCFs grid without a PCF there, and we change the schedule date, and then I leave the row, the next appointment gets calculated here. So that is made in the backend in the Dataverse. But if I go now in offline mode, and I try to do the same, I'm gonna introduce a schedule date. You can see after I leave the row, no next appointment will be calculated because I'm in offline mode. So if I change now to the same grid, but this time with a PCF on it, you can see that each time I introduce the schedule date, the next appointment gets calculated. And also I can use this control to show some eye candy. So having the red line in case it's overdue. So to do that, I've defined for the account the PowerApps grid control, where I've used this calculated columns PCF. In the implementation, again, in the manifest, you don't see much. I have the namespace, I have the name of the PCF and the property event name, as always. And I can even include here some CSS because it's a PCF after all. And there I get the event name, and there I register my render function. And for my render function, that's all I had to do for this PCF. I take the column name from the render parameters, which I get provided there. If the column name it's next appointment, it's not next appointment, we don't do anything. Otherwise, we have to do the calculation. So if it's overdue, then I'm gonna calculate the next Monday, and I also show with the color. And here are the CSS styles which I have attached there. And that would be all. The next use case would be for related records, so showing them right inline a grid. Usually you can only show information in a grid with so taken from a lookup, but not many-to-many or one-to-many relationship. But using a Power Apps grid customizer control, I've succeeded to make for each line in this list a fetch to get these related users and making them showing them right inline. So related users would be the place where I want to show it. And to do that, let's see how it works first. So I have this table and I have there a view named countries. So for each country, I have the associated users. And you can see it's working pretty fast. And for each row, I have here the many-to-many relationship with the associated users, which are here. And I'm still able to use all the Power Apps grid functionality. I didn't had to do much stuff there. It's everything standard. And from the customizing point of view, so first of all, I have the table and the relationship. It's an many-to-many relationship with user. And I've also defined a dummy column. So I cannot add columns to the Power Apps grid. I needed a dummy column. It's called related users in my case. And as you can see, I've added that that column inside my view, but there is no data. It's just a dummy column. It's empty. And if I go now to the customizing and attach to the table the Power Apps grid, I have there this related rows PCF, which I've declared there. So the same I have from the implementation, I have the event name and the name. Took the name for register the render function. And in this case, I'll also have a cache, which I provide to my render component. And what's happening here, basically for each cell I render, I have in the state the record ID and I make a fetch for the related users. And when it's back, I'm gonna cache that inside the cache. So the rest is only showing the image for each user which I get from the Dataverse. So that's all. It's not much, but you can see from the implementation point of view, it's not really good because I have to make a lot of fetches. So each row gets a fetch at least once. I cache it after that, but it's not perfect. So the idea would be to reduce this this amount of fetches. And I've made another solution with at least an example how we can implement something like that. In this case, I'm showing the number of tasks associated to each account right in line the account list. But in this case, the requests are batched. So I'm using something called debouncing. When the cell has to be rendered, I'm going to wait with that until there are no requests for the cell. So, and only after that, I'm making the fetch. So usually I make a fetch per page. And of course, I cache that after that. So let's see how it works. So you have here the list with the tasks. And if I go and open the account and add there another task, and I'm closing now the account, you can see that this new task, it's directly shown there. And to see how it works in the background, I have here the logs too. So the yellow logs you can see on the right side. You'll see right away the yellow logs are the request to render a cell. The pink logs are the fetch requests, so they are the only places where I'm actually making a fetch request. And the green logs are the place where this promise gets resolved. So this cell gets rendered with the real data. And let's see how it works. So first of all, let me refresh this one. And you can see now a lot of requests for each cells. And I have only one fetch there, the pink one. And after that, they are resolved from the cache. So I have only one fetch until now. And if I scroll down, there are a few more requests. There's coming the second fetch request. And I'm resolving. And after that, if I scroll down or up, I solve everything from the cache. So no request anymore. So this one, it's an optimized way to push the limit and to get related data and show it right in line the grid. And the last example that I have now, it's about drag and drop for rows. It's a little unsupported. I had to push the limit there a little too. So let's imagine we have here an account, and there I have a subgrid with some rooms. Or just imagine you have an order, and you have some products inside the order, and you want them to have it in order. So you want to specify the position order for each product. And the user wanted, in our case, to be able to drag and drop and change the order of the rows. And I did that using Power Apps Grid Customizer Control. So let's see how it works. So first, I open the account. And I have this sortable table in my case as a subgrid. And you can see I have there a pointer which I can drag. So we have Berlin. And I can drag it on the 4th place. And now Berlin is there, and if it everything, it's before that. Or I take New York and move it on the 1st position, on the 2nd position. And you've got the idea. Just because it's fun, I do it a few more times. So now moving London on the 2nd position. So to implement that, I have there a sort order column or my sortable table, which I've included inside my view. And so I have a position which I have to take care that would be sorted there for each record. So each time I add a record, I have to count, to change the number. But also if I change the order, I have to change the order of all the positions in the between. So there I've defined this drag rows PCF. This time you see it using the new customizing. So it's not hard to implement it. Actually, I have the same, that's event name. And in the implementation, as always, I have the init function, nothing in the update view. And inside the init function, I'm registering this customizer control, but this time is a little different. Until now, it was a JSON object. This time, it's basically an interface I have to implement there. I have to implement a few functions. So I've took that from the documentation of the example, but this one, it's not used in an example. So that's why I suppose it's for now unsupported. So if I get this column, I can render there the draggable cell component. And I have there an icon. So it's draggable. And when I start dragging, I'm gonna put inside my event the row ID and the row index. And I have also a place where I can drop. And when I drop on the same area, I know where I can search inside the event, sorry, which is the data I'm dragging, and I'm taking from there the row ID and row index, and there I call a callback for on drop. And here it's also a little tricky because this function which I'm calling there, we're gonna send messages to all the windows because I'm not able to change sorting right inside the grid. I'm gonna use form scripting. So I send a post message with the source and target of my drag and drop. I attach there in this form scripting to the message. So if I have a special message name for my dragging, for my event, then I'm gonna start to move the rows. And there, now I'm using form scripting standard. I retrieve all the records for this parent where the form is. So I have this parent ID. I take all the positions in between the source and the target where I'm moving, and I take care that the sorting order is exactly the same. So using my sort order column. And with the responses from that fetch, I'm gonna update each record. So first of all, I have to decide that if I have to increment or decrement in between, because I can move up or down. And I'm gonna update each record in the between with a new number. And when, of course, the target record has to be changed too. And when this done, I have to refresh the grid. So I'm refreshing the grid from outside. I wasn't able to do it from inside the grid. So on the form scripting, on the hosting form, I have in the account the onload event, and there I've registered this form scripting that you just saw in my Visual Studio Code. So that would be it. It's a little bit tricky, but I was happy to see that it's possible, and I still hadn't had to implement the whole grid. I just implemented the drag and drop. So just a few words about the restriction and best practices. You can decide to have a separate customizer control for each grid. So it's possible to make some calculations. It doesn't have to be generic. So you have your own logic you want to implement. So you have a PCF where you implement that. But you can also choose to reuse some customizer for multiple grids, for instance. The colorful option set, it's a use case I can register on several grids, so I'm gonna have it right away. But we have a problem here. We cannot pass more parameters to this control. We have only this field where we register the name of the PCF. We cannot pass more parameters to that. From the best practices, we shouldn't use cell render or editor to mutate data or mutate the metadata of the grid. Basically, we get there some function and so some methods and some properties, and we should use that, but we shouldn't change it manually there. So we are not allowed to. The control should be lightweight and fast because it impacts a lot the grid performance. You saw there are so many renders for each cell, and it should be fast. The grid will dispose the customizer element every time we scroll, for instance. So we should be prepared that some cell started to render, but doesn't get the time to make some request or stuff like that. And so it will recreate new ones. So we have to take care to dispose an internal state to prevent memory leaks. So, and also a problem here, the calculated values, which we do inside the PCFs, cannot be used for filtering or sorting on the server side. It's only on the client side, and it's not available for filtering. A few more limitations. We cannot add or hide columns at runtime. So everything that's specified in the view will be shown there in the PyPs grid. We cannot add or remove dynamic filter for these records, unfortunately, because there are a lot of use cases where this would have been an improvement. Sometimes we have to change only the filter for the grid, and it's not possible. But with the PyPs grid, it's also not possible. And we cannot control the grid from inside the customizers control. So, for instance, we cannot refresh it. So all the example I've shown here, there are a few blogs about that, not all of them, but almost. And you can see it on my blog site on dianabirkelbach.wordpress.com and under category PyPs grid control. Yeah, that would be it from my side. Thank you for watching. So, and if you, in case you have any questions, please.
Thank you, Diana. I guess so. There were a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one was, can we use this control for Power Pages?
No, unfortunately not. So the PyPs grid, it's available for Power Pages, and I tried that out, but didn't work, fortunately. Maybe it will in the future, but not now.
Okay. And then the following, do we have any restrictions? I guess yes, that was the answer, since it's not possible. The next question, if I understand correctly, the Power Apps grid control does not have the ability to define any kind of customization. If I want to display an icon in the control, I need to hard code it, right? If the same control can be used elsewhere, but with a different icon, I need to create another control, correct?
Yeah, it depends. Yes, so that's the problem I was talking about. We cannot pass parameters to this PCF we define there, but I'm thinking about possibilities like instance reading something from environment variables or stuff like that. We have to get a little more creative for that. And maybe it makes sense to, or maybe having some configuration tables or stuff like that. So we have to make tricks. It's not standard. Yes.
Okay. And the last one, Wave 1 2023 and other updates are not too detrimental to the functionality of this control? I guess that was a question.
I'm not sure if I understood the beginning. Very sorry. So
So yeah, Valentin, maybe you can elaborate. He's typing. Release Wave 1 and other updates. Are release Wave 1 and other updates, or how to put it all together? Rephrase it, Valentin, please. I mean, Power Platform updates.
Yes, but they shouldn't interact with the customize and control, which we do. They should only add more features to the PyPs grid. So I don't think I understood the question. Sorry.
Okay. All right. I guess that's it, Valentin. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I wanted to thank you, Diana, for taking the time and sharing your knowledge about PCF controls with us. Hope you will join us again in our future meetups to continue this topic or cover other potential topics. The recording of this presentation will soon be posted on our YouTube channel. Also, in the chat of this event, I posted a link to the feedback form. It's fully anonymous, so we would like to hear your thoughts on how it went. Please share with us your feedback. Yeah, we are looking forward to seeing you in a month, where we will host an after-party event for the upcoming Microsoft build that will be held in May. So join us to learn the most interesting and important updates picked up by our community leaders. That's pretty much it. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Diana, for joining us today. And take care, and see you all soon.
It was great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Have a great evening, all. Bye.
You too. Bye.